Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopta Gopna Shamakun Radha Kun Sivam Ki Jai. Urdama Dhamma Ki Jai. Mathura Dhamma Ki Jai. Nandvika Dhamma Ki Jai. Raghunath Puri Dhamma Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Jangamaya Ki Jai. Jangamaya Ki Jai. Naveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga.
Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
You gotta be patient, probably. With the medical system, you gotta hurry up and wait.
Hurry up, okay.
That's good.
Make sure this has a Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita class, evening class. Okay. Looks like we are starting with chapter 7 today. We'll start with the introduction prayer. Om Jana Tramadasya Yana Jana Shalakya Chakrulita Minatasme Shigurve Namaham Chitanya Mano Vishta Sapita Mina Putale Swayam Rupakara Maya Darati Swaparatikam Andeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnava Shri Guru Sagarvetam Sahagana Raghunath Navitnam Sajivam Savetam Savadutam Harijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Bhavan Lalita Shri Vishakha Hare Krishna Karunam Sindhu Dina Bhagavad Gita Yasha Gopika Kanta Krishna Namaste Tapa Kavishama Gita Namaste Vishvana Sate Devi Pranamame Hare Kriye Panchakalpata Vipayascha Kripa Sindhu Vayachacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today we're starting on chapter 7, Knowledge of the Absolute. We read Sanskrit and then the translation. We do 11 verses. That way we hear this entire Bhagavad Gita in 3 time. Text 1. Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Mayasyata Manaparta Yogam Yujan Mad Asraya Asam Sayam Samagramam Yata Gyadashi Chat Tat Trinu. Sorry, my Sanskrit's still a little rusty. Translation. Now hear, O son of Pritha, Arjuna, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. Text 2. Yanam te hamsa vidyanam idam vashyakmi ashata yad yatva neha bayo nidyat yatvanyam aveshyate. Translation, I shall now declare unto you in full this knowledge, both nominal and nominal, by knowing which there shall remain nothing further to be known. Text 3. Manu shayanam shahasreshu kachid yatati siddhyaye yatatmam api siddhanam kachin mam viti tatvata. Translation, out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and out of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. Text 4. Buhirapo nalo vahu kamano badir ivacha anakara itayame bina praktir ashtada. Translation, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Altogether, these 8 comprise my separated material energies. Text 5. Apariyamitastra anyam prakritam vidhi me param jiva bhuta mahabaho yaridam daryatet jagat. Translation, besides this inferior nature, O mighty Arjuna, there is a superior energy of mine, which all living entities who are struggling with material nature are sustaining the universe. Text 6. Itad yonani bhutani sarvaniti upaharya aha krishnasya jagata prabhava pralayastata. Translation, of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both its origin and dissolution. Text 7. Mata parataram natya kinchid asti dhyana gajaya mayi sarvam idam protam sutre mani gana eva. Translation, O conqueror of wealth, Arjuna, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. Text 8. Rasoham apsu kunteya pravasmi sashi surayaho pranava sarva vedashu sabda ke parusam nishu. Translation, O son of Kunti, Arjuna, I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in ether and the ability in man. Text 9. Punyo gada parvityamcha tejas chasmi virapsasu jivanam sarva bhuteshu tapas chasmi tapas vishu. Translation, I am the original fragrance of the earth, and I am the heat and fire. I am the life of all that lives, and I am the penance of all aesthetics. Text 10. Bijamam sarva bhutanam vidhi parta sanatanam buddhir buddhamit mattam ashmi teja tejasvinam aham. Translation, O son of Pritha, know that I am the original seed of all existences, the intelligence of the intelligent, and the prowess of the all-powerful men. A final verse for tonight, text 11. Balam balavatam chaham kama raja vidratitam dharma dharma virudo bhuteshu kamosmi bharatashaba. Translation, I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. I am sex life, which is not contrary to religious principle. O son of Bharatas, Arjuna. Gornitai ki jai. Returning to text 1. Translation. Now hear, O son of Pritha, Arjuna, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. Report by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In this 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the nature of Krishna consciousness is fully described. Krishna is full in opulences, and how he manifests such opulence is described herein. Also, 4 kinds of fortunate people who become attached to Krishna, and 4 kinds of unfortunate people who never take to Krishna are described in this chapter. In the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, the living entity has been described as the non-material spirit soul, which is capable of elevating himself to the self-realization by different types of yogas. At the end of the 6th chapter, it has been clearly stated that the steady concentration of the mind upon Krishna, or in other words, Krishna consciousness, is the highest form of all yoga. By concentrating one's mind upon Krishna, one is able to know the absolute truth completely, but not otherwise. Impersonal Brahma Jyoti, or localized Paramatma, realization is not perfect knowledge or the absolute truth because it is partial. Full and scientific knowledge is Krishna, and everything is revealed to the person in Krishna consciousness. In complete Krishna consciousness, one knows that Krishna is ultimate knowledge beyond any doubts. Different types of yoga are only stepping stones on the path of Krishna consciousness. One who takes directly to Krishna consciousness automatically knows about Brahma Yoti and the Paramatma in full. By practice of Krishna consciousness yoga, one can know everything in full, namely the absolute truth, the living entities, material nature, and their manifestation with paraphernalia. One should therefore begin yoga practice as directed in the last verse of the 6th chapter. Concentration of the mind upon Krishna, the Supreme, is made possible by prescribed devotional service in 9 different forms, of which Shravanam is the first and the most important. The Lord therefore says to Arjuna, Tat Shrunu, or hear from me. No one can be a greater authority than Krishna, and therefore by hearing from him, one receives the greatest opportunity for progress in Krishna consciousness. One is therefore to learn from Krishna directly or from a pure devotee of Krishna, and not from a non-devotee upstart, puffed up with academic education. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, this process of Krishna, process of understanding Krishna, the Supreme Personality Godhead, the Absolute Truth, is described in the 2nd chapter of the 1st canto as follows. Srinavatam Swakatam Krishna Puna Sravana Kitana Hiranyatas Sito Hiyapadriyani Vedunatu Noti Sriti Satam Nasta Prayasha Abhadeshru Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhavakvati Uttama Sloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishitiki Tara Rajas Tamo Bhavaha Kamalo Bhalasyaye Cheta Iter Inavitnam Chititam Sattva Pasadati Evam Prasana Manas Bhagavad Bhakti Yogata Bhagavatatva Vidyanam Mukta Sangasya Jayate Vidyate Hidaya Grantis Chidyante Srava Samyasya Kichante Kashya Chatasya Kamani Drishya Ivatman Nisvare. To hear about Krishna from the Vedic literature or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita is itself righteous activity. If one hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as the best wishing friend and purifies a devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge as he hears more about Krishna from Bhagavatam. And from the devotees, he becomes fixed in devotional service to the Lord. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from modes of passion and ignorance. And thus material lusts and avarice are diminished. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection, enables one to come at once to the stage of Asham Sayam Samagram, understanding of the supreme absolute truth of Godhead. Bhagavatam 1.2.17 through 21. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Rama, Rama. Yeah, therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna. There's so many of us are lost in this dream, this world of an illusion. It's only the souls that have had millions of births, chasing after this concept of happiness, this material happiness that we keep going after. It's an emptiness. It's about the time that you catch it. Oh, I got a little bit of happiness. Poof, it's gone. You have to start all over. You go back and you catch it again. Poof, it's gone. It just happens so fast. It's happiness. This material happiness is a fleeting moment. And so the jivas, the souls who have gone through this lifetime after lifetime, are getting tired of this. That's when they begin to take notice of devotees. They got something. They're enjoying life without all these material possessions. But it's only through the association of, Krishna or his devotee that we can make progress, that we can come to this place of surrender. That is where it's important, as you see many Hare Krishnas going out on Sankirtan, going out on book distribution, because we're trying to expand this mercy on out, trying to wake people up, say, hey, wake up. The more you're trying to enjoy your material senses, the more that you're creating your own suffering. People are their own worst enemies in this world. The more that we try to go after and indulge in our senses, the more misery that we are creating, the more chains that we are being entangled with into this world of illusion. And why is this a world of illusion? Because nothing lasts. There's not a thing in this world that's going to last. You can become the world's richest person, accumulate all the wealth in the world, and then death comes for you. That wealth stays here. You can't take it with you. You become the world's smartest person. Go to the greatest universities, get a PhD and whatnot, and get a Nobel Peace Prize. When death comes, that stays here. You can't take that with you. You got to start all over again. Same thing with athletes. Some people aspire to be the greatest athletes in the world. You go to the gym every day and, win Olympic gold medals and whatnot, and you die, poof, it's gone. It stays here. Can't take that with you. The Krishna consciousness, bhakti yoga, that's something that grows with you. That's something that doesn't go away. That's something that's not an illusion. And many times, devotional service, people, when they first get into it, it seems can taste very bitter, almost like a poison. The long hours of devotional service, of hearing the mantra over and over and over again, and kirtan over and over again, and classes, and keeping up on the sadhana, it can seem very bitter. But when one sticks to it, that bitterness goes away, and there's a sweet nectar that arises, and it becomes so sweet in everything you do in devotional service, from reading the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam to kirtan to association with devotees to even doing your service. Washing dishes even becomes fun. Material world's the complete opposite. Material senses, you're trying to indulge in material senses, you get a nice quick dose of happiness up front. doing something that you like doing. But in the material world, it's a depreciating return. Because everything at first, seems sweet, seems like nectar, enjoying material senses. But then that becomes bitter. The more you try to enjoy, say you take your favorite movie, watch your favorite movie, the first time around. Hey, that's great. Keep on watching it every day. Make that to be the only thing that you watch for the next 10 years. You're going to get real sick of it. It's a depreciating return. Where once you had, a little bit of joy, a little bit of happiness, brought to you by a favorite movie. Now it's bringing a lot of bitterness because it's like, oh, I've seen this way too many times. Same thing when you go out, eat your favorite food, you can only have it so many times, in a row before you're like, oh, it's a depreciating return. That's the same thing, with I always talk about, drugs and alcohol a lot because drugs and alcohol, that's just a deeper addiction in the material world. Most of us are just, dealing with the basic addictions, too much TV, indulging in our senses. But, the material senses are much like drugs and alcohol. Because drugs and alcohol is a depreciating return. The first time you go out and get high, smoke a little bit of weed. And I used to smoke so much weed back in the day. Oh my gosh. There was a time I didn't know if I could do without it. That's how I spent my days, getting up in the morning, lighting up a joint, having some Maker's Mark whiskey. That's how I numbed myself out in life and to just get through the day, to work a 60, 70-hour week just to enjoy my senses. But it's a depreciating return. Because eventually that joint, that marijuana, you're smoking more and more of it just to get a buzz. Same thing with the alcohol. You start building up a tolerance, and you have to drink more and more and more of it just to get a buzz. And becomes in what was once, that was seemed like nectar up front, becomes bitter and becomes like a poison in the end. And so many ways are, when we try to indulge in our material senses, that's always the pathway that we're following. Doesn't matter if it's drugs or alcohol. It doesn't matter if it's, these, tiny little things in life or, indulging too much on the internet or playing video games. It's a depreciating return. That's why we have to take shelter of the spiritual master, because the spiritual master, the guru, is here to teach us how to surrender. It's to do everything in pure loving devotional service. Sounds so simple. Do things with love. It sounds so simple. But the problem is, we only know this perverted form of love that we experience here in the material world. Because what we find is God is love. And to understand love, you have to understand God. To understand God, you understand love. So in many ways, the guru, the spiritual master, is trying to teach us how to surrender and how to love God properly, how to serve him in love and devotion. He is her guiding light. He's a representative of Krishna. This wonderful param system that we have. We have an entire line of acharyas praying for us, because we're a part of that system when we take initiation. Just as I pray to my guru every day, I'm offering everything to him. My guru is praying to his guru. He's offering everything to his guru, and so forth, and goes all the way back to Krishna. You have a whole line lifting you up, a whole line of acharyas, helping you get back home to Godhead. Any questions or comments so far? move on to the next verse. I shall now declare unto you in full knowledge, both nominal and nominal, by knowing which there shall remain nothing further to be known. Purport. Complete knowledge includes knowledge of the phenomenal world and the spirit behind it. The source of both of them is transcendental knowledge. The Lord wants to explain the above mentioned systems of knowledge because Arjuna is Krishna's confidential devotee and friend. The beginning of the 4th chapter, this explanation was given by the Lord and is again confirmed here. Complete knowledge can be achieved only by the devotee of the Lord, directly from the Lord into disciplinic succession. Therefore, one should be intelligent enough to know the source of all knowledge, who is the cause of all causes and the only object for meditation in all types of yoga practices. When the cause of all causes becomes known, then everything knowable becomes known, and nothing remains unknown. The Vedas say, Yasmin Vigyante, Vigate, Sarvam Eva Vigatam Bhavanti. So here again, we're talking about the disciplinic succession. That this knowledge can only be received through the disciplinic succession, because we can't do this alone. That's the whole reason why we're trapped in this material world. Because at one point in time, we thought it'd be we could enjoy separately from Krishna. We can become our own gods. Krishna is so merciful that he created this world for us. He's like, okay, you want to go enjoy yourselves? Here's your prison. Very much ways. I've talked about this in previous classes. This material world is a prison for us. We have different cells, 8,400,000 forms of different cells that we can be put into. The human life is the most important life because we have that free choice to choose service, devotional service, or continue to, enjoy material senses. Human life is like the parole system in the prison. When you get to human birth, the parole board's looking at you. What you going to do? You've been given this freedom to choose again. You're no longer in a different kind of cell, such as animal form, which you don't really have free choice in animal form. You're just responding to your past karmic actions, to your senses, to your natural instincts. So when you get this human form, say you perform devotional service but aren't quite purified by the time that you meet your death. That's when the parole board says, very good, you did a really good job. You're not quite ready to be released yet, but we got this nice penthouse cell for you up in the heavenly planetary systems. Gold toilet seat, feather fluffy pillow, the best prasadam, best food in the world. You enjoy your senses for a very long time there. And eventually when you serve your time there, you're up for parole again in the human form, to where you have another chance to progress in your devotional service. But there are many of those that, like I said, it takes millions of births to get to that point to where you're wanting to do devotional service. So there's many of those that get up to the human form and they're not ready for devotional service. They don't get the association of the devotee. So they end up, parole board looks at them as like, well, boy, you've accumulated a lot of karma. You're going to have to spend some time as a dung beetle for a while. Roll around that ball of dung. You'd be really proud of that ball of dung, it gets nice and big. show off to all the other girl dung beetles. Hey, I got this big ball of dung. But that's what happens when you abuse the human life and just use it to enjoy the material senses. You can revert back to 8,400,000 forms of species, and that's your sentence. Until once you served your sentence, once you served your time, then you get another chance. Human birth, which I call that's your parole. That's when they're the parole board is watching you again. So the spiritual master is the best way to receive Krishna's mercy, to receive his knowledge. Spiritual master is much like a magnifying glass, this param system. You take a magnifying glass and you go out on a bright sunny day and get that beam of light just right, and you catch paper on fire, catch leaves on fire. When I was a kid, I was a rascal. I was, frying ants with this little beam of light. Good thing I got into Krishna consciousness, because I would, probably end up having to come back as an ant and have some kid frying me. But that magnifying glass, your guru is like that magnifying glass. To get him to focus on you correctly, you have to follow his instructions correctly. You have to keep up with your sadhana, chant your 16 rounds, and do your best to please your guru. Because only through that can Krishna's mercy really come and shine down upon you in such a speedy way. It's really hard to develop the taste for Krishna consciousness without doing that. Any questions or comments? I'm going to move on to the next verse. Text 3. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and out of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. Report. There are various grades of men, and out of many thousands, one may be sufficiently interested in transcendental realization to try to know what is the self, what is the body, and what is the absolute truth. Generally, mankind is simply engaged in the animal propensities, namely eating, sleeping, defending, and mating, and hardly anyone is interested in transcendental knowledge. The first 6 chapters of the Gita are meant for those who are interested in transcendental knowledge and understanding the self, the super self in the process of realization by dhyana yoga, and discrimination of the self from matter. However, Krishna can only be known by persons who are in Krishna consciousness. Other transcendentalists may achieve impersonal Brahman realization, for this is easier than understanding Krishna. Krishna is the supreme person, but at the same time, he is beyond knowledge of Brahman and Paramatma. Yogis and Jnanis are confused in their attempts to understand Krishna. Although the greatest of the impersonalists, Sripada and Sankaracharya, has admitted in his Gita commentary that Krishna is the Supreme Personality Godhead, but his followers do not accept Krishna as such. For it is very difficult to know Krishna even though one has transcendental realization of impersonal Brahman. Krishna is the Supreme Personality Godhead, the cause of all causes, the premium of the Lord Govinda, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchid Anada Vigraha Anadir Adir Govindaha Sarva Karanam. It is very difficult for the non-devotees to know him. Although non-devotees declare that the path of bhakti or devotional service is very easy, they cannot practice it. If the path of bhakti is so easy, then the non-devotee class of men proclaim, then why do they take up the difficult path? Actually, the path of bhakti is not easy. The so-called path of bhakti is practiced by unauthorized persons without knowledge of bhakti may be easy. But when it is practiced factually according to the rules and regulations, the speculative scholars and philosophers fall away from this path. Sri Rupa Goswami writes in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Shruti Smriti Pranandi Pancharatra Vidimina Ikanatiki Harir Bhaktir Upadvaya Kalpate. Devotional service to the Lord that ignores the authorized Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Puranas, Narada, Patra, etc., is simply an unnecessary disturbance in society. It's not possible for the Brahmin realized impersonalist or the Paramatma realized yogi to understand Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as the son of Mother Yashoda or the charioteer of Arjuna. Even the great demigods are sometimes confused about Krishna. Bhayante yat surya mam tu veda nat kashchana. No one knows me as I am, the Lord says. And if one does know him, then Samahatma Sudurlabha. Such a great soul is very rare. Therefore, unless one practices devotional service to the Lord, he cannot know Krishna as he is Tatvata. Even though one is a great scholar or philosopher, only the pure devotees can know something of the inconceivable transcendental qualities of Krishna. The cause of all causes in his omnipotence and opulence, and his wealth, fame, strength, beauty, knowledge, renunciation. Because Krishna is benevolently inclined to his devotees, he's the last word in Brahman realization, and the devotees alone can realize him as he is. Therefore, it is said, Atta Sri Krishna Namadi Na Bhavid Hridayam Indraya Sevana Mukhi Shivado Swayam Eva Chaputrati Adha. No one can understand Krishna as he is by the blunt material senses, but he reveals himself to the devotees, being pleased with them for their transcendental loving service to them. Yeah, so many people think, well, bhakti yoga sounds easy. This devotional service sounds easy. Boy, you wouldn't believe how many people we get into the bhakti program that tap out within the first couple weeks and leave because they find out it's not so easy. I said, devotional service, and it can seem very bitter at first because of all the practices, and because we're so used to indulging in our material senses. I mean, we've had millions of lifetimes where we were just so used to chasing after what our material senses wanted. Millions of lifetimes. So we're trying to break that. And like I was saying, this is like an addiction that we're all trying to break. Bhakti yoga is our path through recovery. We're breaking all these addictions to the material senses and taking up Krishna consciousness, bhakti yoga. And through this process, it's like I talk about, it's like a garden. You're planting a garden. Bhakti yoga. You're planting a beautiful flowering plant, and your material senses are like the weeds. When you indulge in your material senses, you're watering the weeds. The weeds are growing, choking out your beautiful bhakti flower that you're trying to grow. But if you're doing devotional service properly, keeping up your sadhana, doing your 16 rounds, and keeping up on your vows, these weeds, You're not watering the weeds. You're continually watering your bhakti flower, this bhakti devotion, and it's growing and growing more beautiful and grows within. And the weeds you're pulling up day by day every time you choose devotional service over sense gratification. You're plucking up the weeds by the roots, pulling them out each and every day. It's only by continually doing this that you can make advancement in Krishna consciousness. And one of the ways that we make advancement to overcome our senses is not only, surrendering to a guru, following his instructions, but we have to come to a realization, because a lot of our past karma is connected with our addictions in life. What we are indulging in when we are succumbing to our material senses. So every day, I'm always asking Gornitai, going before Krishna, oh, please, Krishna, please increase my devotion for you. Please increase my desire for you. I want to desire you more than any material desire I have. So beg Krishna every day, beg the deities every day to increase your desire. It's only by increasing our desire for Krishna can we overcome our material desires. Krishna wants you to beg. Krishna wants that relationship with you. He has given us so many opportunities in so many ways to have a relationship with him, from a friend to a parent to a child to a lover, even as an enemy. We had, examples of demons in the Srimad Bhagavatam that, were his greatest enemy. They could not keep Krishna out of their mind. Like Kamsa, he was continually thinking of Krishna as his enemy over and over and over again. And eventually he'd be killed by Krishna. He got liberated. But Krishna wants us to have a relationship with him. Because the more that we are surrendering to Krishna, the more that we're giving ourselves to him, the more that Krishna has given himself to us, and the more that he is surrendering to us, the more that we are binding him with ropes of love, like Mother Yashoda trying to tie him up with rope. Well, coming up 2 inches too short, 2 inches too short, over and over. But through her pure loving and devotion, she was able to tie him up. And the same way that we're trying to tie ourselves to Krishna through our pure loving and devotion. That's the only way that you can conquer Krishna, is through pure loving and devotion. Yes, Prabhu. Yes.
So, I was actually hearing a lecture today from His Holiness Devamrita Swami, and he was speaking on the Srimad Bhagavatam verse about associating with devotees from the second chapter of the first canto, and the verses, there was the first purport that we read where there was a large chain of verses there from that chapter, that second chapter of the first canto. And basically, the conversation went into understanding our Swarup, or our eternal identity. And I was thinking about this, that if we know Krishna, which was discussed in the last purport, if we know Krishna, then we know everything. So if we go on with the process to know Krishna, then we will know ourselves, which, at a certain point, that becomes paramount, because myself as a servant to Krishna, I have to know what my service is, so to speak. But we can rest assured that it will be revealed. And actually, Devamrita Swami Maharaj was discussing that Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada said that one first realizes their Sarup in Kirtan, in Sankirtan, not alone, but in congregation. That's when we get realization of ourselves being a servant of the spiritual master, an eternal servant of the spiritual master, and an eternal servant of Krishna. And this is the first step that we'll know I'm actually spirit soul, and I'm actually an eternal servant of the servant of the servant of the servant in Parampara. And Prabhupada actually says that in one of his purports. And Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada had said it before. And then he also mentioned that you spoke about relationship with Krishna and begging their lordships, Shri Shri Gaura-Nitai, for more desire for their service. And he mentioned something that I had also read. It came of its own accord. This point that service, our service to Shri Shri Radha and Krishna is actually possible through the mercy of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And this was discussed by Nityananda Prabhu to Jiva Goswami, which is written in a book called Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, which speaks about Navadvip. And Gyanavan and Maharaj were studying that and hearing that, and I got to hear. And he mentioned this point. It was mentioned by Nityananda Prabhu to Jiva Goswami that one has to serve Gauranga as a servant, Dasya Bhav. And what is that? Dasya? It's spreading the Sankirtan mission. It's participating and spreading the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to have everybody chanting and dancing. And there's no question of higher rasas with Gauranga Mahaprabhu. Those are already taken. Now we simply have to serve in Dasya. We just join the movement and we propagate the Hare Krishna mantra just like he does every day. He's going on Sankirtan, and that's the idea. We participate to our level in the Dasya Bhav, in the servant of Gauranga. And then Devamrita Swami Maharaj was saying that this is the way to actually get access to the higher relationships, as you mentioned, with Sri Sri Radha and Krishna. And so I just wanted to mention those points, which harmonized with your topics and some of the purports.
Thank you, Prabhu. Looks like that is our time for today. If there's any other last minute questions or comments. Bhagavad Gita ki jai.